Thus, our verse in Habakkuk really, in my opinion, is a fitting one for our study here in Galatians on faith and faithfulness, right? Remember the verses I keep reading? A person who's trying to be declared righteous by keeping the law. It's not so much that they're trying to be declared righteous by their works, so much as they're trying to attain membership into Israel by being declared legally Jewish. If they weren't born with the status, if they were born a Gentile, they're trying to make it into Israel so they can get that stamp of salvation approval, that stamp of covenant membership, that stamp of belonging to the people of God. That's the first step. And then, as they maintain their life as an existing covenant member that they gained by becoming Jewish, the Gentile enjoins himself to keep the Torah, or as Paul describes it, to keep the whole law. Galatians 5:4, Galatians 5:3. He enjoins himself upon Torah obedience because it is the mechanism of keeping Torah that the covenant member believed would help keep him or maintain his position as a covenant member, the covenant membership that he earned by either being born Jewish or becoming a Jew. So it's not so much that he's keeping Torah to gain membership into the group. Rather, he's keeping Torah to maintain and to remain in the group and to have God declare him a covenant member at the end of the day. So that's kind of the language that I understand Paul to be using in his letters to Galatians, and sometimes you see this carried over into Rome. So indeed, the Habakkuk passage, as I continue, this passage is a decisive verse for the Apostle Paul. We already knew that because we read it in Romans chapter 1. Here, the famous phrase, "the just shall live by faith," from Romans 1:17, must be understood from the original context of Habakkuk to mean that the righteous person lives on the basis of his faithfulness. In other words, he's not saved on the basis of his faithfulness. He lives his life according to existing faith that he's already placed in Jesus. In the time of Habakkuk, if we were to go back and get the historical context, which of course Paul obviously knew, but many of us modern Christians do not know, the nation was being torn in her loyalties, whether to trust God and the covenant he had given, or to ally herself with the nations for protection, to ally herself with the nations that were around her. So Habakkuk's statement is made with this in mind. The righteous, that is, those who have faith in God, will live, that is, be protected and sustained by faith, that is, by demonstrating a faithful trust in God and his promises. That's how I see the verse. So it is in this understanding of faith that Paul carries into the argument of Romans and is sustained throughout the book. Thus, as I conclude this section on justification, the righteous shall live by faith, and quote that phrase, doesn't simply mean that he will claim to have faith but then do nothing about it. This is the unfortunate view that has been kind of pushed in modern Christianity. I'm not accusing all Christians of maintaining the fact that all they need is faith in Jesus and they don't have to concern themselves with faithfulness to God's Word. That's not really what I'm trying to say. What I am saying is that there seems to be a popular teaching that goes around these days, and it didn't just start in the 21st century. It's been going on for a couple hundred years, if not a couple thousand years, that essentially the primary thing that one needs to concern himself with as a Christian is faith in Yeshua, faith in the Messiah, faith in Jesus, and then don't really focus on faithfulness to the Torah. That's essentially the challenge I'm presenting to those of you who are listening to my commentary who might have a background from the traditional Christian perspective. Faith and faithfulness, as I understand it, are both important to God, and I don't exactly know how God takes faithfulness and binds it together with faith so that both become one coin with two sides, meaning it's not that we're saved by our works, but that the works follow genuine faith. We know that works follow genuine faith. That's the biblical view. And if you're a Christian reading my commentaries, listening to my commentaries, and you hear me saying that the works that should follow your faith should include faithfulness to the Torah, well, then you've got it right. I think that part of the works that we should be doing as Christians is keeping the Torah. Not just keeping the New Testament and being good to our neighbors and loving our neighbor and loving our wife and things like that, if you're a husband. The works, I think, should include keeping Torah. Why not? Why not? So on the contrary, as I conclude, if a Christian has genuine faith, then I believe he will demonstrate genuine faithfulness to the God that he claims to have faith in. Meaning, I believe he'll demonstrate genuine faithfulness to the Torah sooner or later. I think it'll show up that way. And this may not always mean that he embraces Sabbath right away. Sometimes it takes years for you to understand that the Sabbath has not been done away with. Rather, faith and faithfulness are the way that you'll live. They will be your pattern of life. The way I put it in my commentary is, faith, in this faith and faithfulness, he indeed shall live. So, you live by your faith in Yeshua. It's really quite simple, as I think it is. You live by your faith in Yeshua, and you live by your faithfulness to Yeshua's words. And what are Yeshua's words? Well, we know he is the one who authored the Bible. He is the Word made flesh. We know that he is the one through whom God created all things, and through whom God sustains all things, and to whom all things belong. So the words of Moshe are really the words of Yeshua. So why not embrace the words of Moshe? Why not embrace the 5 books? Why not walk after a Torah-observant lifestyle? Why? Why should you? Because they are your works. They are the faithfulness that God anticipates. In fact, I'll add one more feature, and then I'll move on to Acts chapter 10. You're not even going to be doing it by your own strength. That's the wonderful part of walking in Torah. God promised by His Spirit that you would be able to walk after the Torah because God wrote the Torah on your heart, and God empowers you by the Spirit to do it. So God wills you to do it, and God empowers you to do it. Therefore, you can do it. Whoever said you can't keep the Torah has not studied the Torah, has not studied the New Testament.